Okay. And here's everyone, way more than 3 adults. My dad's over there getting coffee. And here's my husband who's going to hold it. Okay. Hello once again. My name is Angela Bowers, and I'm making a speech that is persuasive regarding cohabitation being wrong. Before I start out with anything, I want to make sure that everybody understands that this speech, although it is about cohabitation being wrong, everything that we do as Christians needs to be understood that Christ loved us enough to die for us, and he wants to make sure that when we're dealing with other people, because that is part of what we should be doing, is dealing with them the same way that he deals with us. And so I am actually going to read from this because it's kind of a long verse, but it's 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7, and that is that love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, love does not brag and is not arrogant, does not act unbecomingly, it does not seek its own, it is not provoked, does not take into account a wrong suffered, does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth, bears all things, believes all things, and hopes all things, and endures all things. So with that, I want you to know that it is very important for us to remember that cohabitation is a trick. It is wrong. It is not okay. It's an act of the devil to make you believe that it is okay to live with somebody else without being married to them. And when I say living with someone, I don't mean just being a roommate at college. I mean you're living together for the sake of being man and wife because you're trying it out and you don't want to go down and pay for that marriage license and have a minister, have you say your vows and be married to that man or that woman. So I'm here today also to make sure that you understand, if you want the best relationship that you can have, then you need to listen to this speech. I myself cohabitated, and I understand what it's about. I'm not here to say that, well, you can't do what I did because I'm telling you that's just the way it is. But I'm telling you that people who cohabitate are 1.9 times more likely to divorce after having gotten married. And that's what I did. I lived with my second husband and I got divorced. And we have a son out of that. And he's the greatest kid, but he's had to deal with so much. And later on in the speech, you're going to listen to what some of these kids have to deal with. Society tricks you. This is one of the ways that you become interestingly unaware of what you're doing. Society tricks you into believing it's okay, it's all right, it makes you feel good, you're not hurting anybody, but I'm here to tell you that you are hurting somebody. The very first person you're hurting is yourself, because there is absolutely no one there to support you. In cohabitative relationships, rarely do you find, and these are pointed out in studies that I'm telling you about, rarely do you find that couples combine what they have. It's almost always separate. They have separate finances. They have separate, sometimes, homes. Sometimes they have completely, and of course they have separate cars, but it's like you don't drive my car and I won't drive yours. Everything is very, very separate. They'll even go so far as to carry out a life insurance policy on one another, but they'll keep it all separate. That's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. Some people, even though they're not married, will draw up a contract just like they are married and say, if we decide to get divorced, even though we're not married, this is what I expect to happen. And there's like a prenup when you're married. Aside from those things that happen whenever you're married, like when you're not married like that. The pain that happens from cohabitation, like I said, it does happen to you, but the worst of that pain happens to what is frequently the outcome of two people getting together, a man and a woman, and that is children. Because those children, even though the wife, who isn't really the wife, is there and the man is there, the man frequently kind of steps back and he's not part of the relationship between the child anymore and the parenting relationship. That role is always removed. Aside from that, these children, they have a revolving door of men come into their lives sometimes. And many times, women who are in these relationships have several children, and each one of them have a different father, unfortunately. And these children are at risk for many, many things. They're at risk for Department of Human Services coming into their families and intermediating. They're at risk for going to prison. They're at risk for longer prison terms. They're at risk for hunger. They're at risk for poverty. They are at risk for dying an early death. They are at risk for being homeless, drug addicted, alcohol addicted, and they are at risk for dying on the streets. So the lie that society is telling you is just that. So I'm telling you, if you want that thing, that pure marriage, that good and hopeful thing that the Lord wants for you, because one of the resolving things that we can do as a community and as a government is go out and very slowly take the 10 Commandments and those other 2 commandments that we have from the New Testament that say to love one another and to love the Lord your God. Take those 12 things, teach them one at a time. Take a log. We're not talking about just religion. We're not talking about just Christianity. We're talking about ways of living that make your life right and righteous. And take them and make them have a log and have a daily routine and teach them. And because there has to be a way that we can get out of this pit that is happening, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. So believe what I'm saying. Understand that righteous thing that is out there. It's called Jesus Christ. He has a name. He has a Father. He is God. Whenever you start talking to Him and asking Him what you should do, He will go to you and tell you what you should do. And don't pretend like you can't hear Him, because you can hear Him. Because the Holy Spirit is here to give you that still small voice that's inside of you that says what's right and what's wrong, that probably said you shouldn't do what you're doing now. So let's get it together. Let's move on out of the relationship for a while. Start maybe dating again and deciding if marriage is really what you want. And if it is, then go get married. Because the Lord tells us that He would rather have us being married than doing things with one another that we shouldn't be doing. And when you go to get married and you need to tell that preacher what your address is, I want to know that it's different from the groom's. Thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed that. And you guys have a good night.